Howdy, howdy, howdy. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I know I personally am. This is another Skull Button Devlog. I'm discussing my game VSCS-III, hence the VSCS there. For anybody where this is your first video of mine that you're watching, I am making a game that is roughly based on Windows 3. So it is set in a fake operating system that sort of looks like Windows 3, but with some fairly significant changes, which we will get into in this video, which is very cool. What we are going to be talking about today is the taskbar and window minimization, which anybody who's watched my previous videos will have heard me bring up a couple of times as something that honestly I've been putting off because it's a fairly difficult feature to implement, but I have managed to get it working mostly. I'd say if I had to guess, maybe 80% there. It's pretty close. So what we're looking at here, I always just do a little, art piece of what's going on in the video with my logo here. And this one, we can see there's kind of an outline around it. So this is as if this were a window on the desktop and it were being minimized. So suppose you were minimizing this, it would get a little outline, it would disappear, and then that outline would go down and down and turn into a button on the taskbar. And then when you click it again, it would expand. So it would go boop, 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 and it would progressively go up, and then the window would reappear on the desktop. So that's what this is sort of supposed to look like. We'll see it in Engine in a little bit here. So window minimization is not super fancy. It is literally just a new button. So I've mentioned previously as well that I'm trying to make sure that all of the windows in the game are structured in such a way that all of the code is shared. That's just good UI programming. And so in addition to this close button that you will have seen previously, which closes a window in a safe way, it doesn't matter what type of window, they're all the same, it's the same code. In addition to that, I've also added a minimize button now, which is very cool. So it will trigger that behavior that we're seeing up there. Again, we will see that in Engine in a minute. Before I do that, I am just going to quickly cut over to a separate section of my design document, which I believe I may have shown off before. If not, it will be fun looking at it for the first time. All right, welcome to the taskbar section of the doc. You will have seen this already in the actual engine in previous videos, so this should look fairly familiar if you've watched any of those. Maybe not the actual names of the windows, though. I have not actually put the mini games from the last game in, so don't get too excited over Bit Crush or Infinite Monkeys. Those are mini games from VSCS-II that I may or may not bring into VSCS-III. They're placeholders here, though. So the important part here that I would like to focus on, which was not implemented in previous videos, is these buttons actually changing. So there's a deceptive amount of complexity to this taskbar. So the first part is the fact that these buttons actually have a standard sprite and then a press sprite. So you can see that here and here respectively. And in addition, I wanted it to reflect some state when it is minimized versus when it is open. So I keep always wanting to say maximized, but it's minimized versus open. Those are the two states. So I do actually swap out the sprite sets. So I've got a pair here and a pair here. It's not just changing the icon. I just swap out the entire button, and you can see those buttons on the right there. And then the other part of the complexity here is the pagination. So I've been very busy. I've also implemented the pagination here. And so the way it currently works, and I'm playing around with it a little bit, is when you press that right button, it will move over and show you a new page of 6 of these buttons. So for instance, if you have 7 windows open, you minimize all of them. Well, you don't necessarily have to, they'd still show up in the taskbar. But you've got 7 windows open or minimized, 7 windows active in the scene, and you press that right button, it will display just this left one, and then the rest of the space will be blank. So it is essentially just showing that second page, and then you can click back. And then as you can see, these buttons are disabled. So for instance, this is the scenario when you first load into the scene. There are no windows in the scene, and so why would you be able to go left and right? You would have to open more than 6 windows to be able to go right. So I'm expecting there to be a lot of windows in the game, so the pagination is just something that I've put in place to account for that. We will have to spam pop-up windows because I don't think there are enough windows actually in the game to do that just yet. Another quick note before I forget is I think I've actually swapped these sprites. So I didn't do that accidentally. I'm just kind of playing around with what makes sense. If you have any input, I don't usually ask for input in these videos, but please let me know if something feels a little weird or you're like, that icon seems more like a window open versus windows closed. Let me know. I have these swapped, so currently if you see this, it means the window is closed, it's minimized. So it is in the taskbar, which is why it kind of makes sense to me. And then the up arrow doesn't actually indicate minimized currently, it indicates open because it's pointing up. I don't really know which one of those makes the most sense, but I can swap it out pretty easily if I want to change it in the future, which is nice. Okay, let's cut over to the actual game engine. Here we are in VSCS-III. This should look fairly familiar, except that the taskbar actually works, and I will prove that to you. So, as you can see, there is what looks like a file browser window in the taskbar, but it is nowhere to be seen on the desktop. I wonder why that could be. Well, if we go and click on that taskbar button, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm very proud of that. So then if I press minimize, it's going to do the opposite of what we just saw. And it minimizes like that, and it will remember the position of the window, and it will transition between. I do want to call out very quickly, there is still some stuff work in progress, as with every one of these videos. So you'll notice as I'm minimizing and maximizing, and I'll do that just a few times. You can also just click on the taskbar button. I hope this is coming across in the video. Maybe I'll freeze frame on it for a second here. You'll notice that there's kind of a grid on that ghost, as I'm calling it. So the ghost is that outline that's going up and down there. That is because it is not snapping to the pixel grid. I have a pixel perfect camera, and it is unfortunately tearing. There are a few little pieces of UI where I need to fix this. I've fixed it on most of them so far. So for instance, the windows won't do this. But what's essentially happening, for anybody who's curious, is the dimensions of that ghost are obviously dynamic. So it is just interpolating between the size of this window here and the size of the button when I press that or that. And if it's a floating point value, so it's not necessarily perfectly aligned to grid. And because that ghost, much like the windows, is actually a 9 sprite, so it's got the corners, the edges, and the center, it's dynamically resizing. And as it dynamically resizes, you can kind of see the tiling. So that's what that is you can see the tiling because it's not matched exactly to the camera. I hope I explained that properly. I may have missed a few details, but for anybody who's curious. So yeah, we can open up multiple windows. So let me open up a settings window there, and you can see it shows up at the bottom. I did fix that bug from previously, so it does not change dynamically with the active window. It will always be in order that you open them, so settings will always be to the right of file browser unless I close file browser and then reopen it, and then it'll show up on the right, which is nice because that was broken before, but it was kind of just a temporary thing. I was just pulling in all the windows in the scene every few frames. It wasn't a good way to do it. This is much cleaner. So it's actually like listening for the windows opening and such, and registering them and then deregistering them when the windows close. It's a lot cleaner. So let's open up a few windows here. I'll open up the reader. Ooh, I'm going to pretend you haven't seen that because that's going to come next. And let's just open up a bunch of pop-ups. I've got a ton of them there. Yeah, this game's getting a little chaotic, so window minimization is very much appreciated. Not just by my future players, I imagine, but by me, because I can't handle all of this. This is a lot. Also, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I don't think pop-up windows are going to be minimizable, but these ones are because they're mostly placeholders, so I know that's not really standard. So we've got all of these. If I want to minimize one of the pop-ups, I can do that. You'll have noticed an interesting behavior there, though. Sorry, there's a lot to go over. I've been very busy. So the terminal is currently at the active window. if I click on the file browser, it will actually make it the active window, but if it's the active window and I click this terminal button again, it will minimize it. That's a very strange behavior that I think a lot of people take for granted, but if you mess around, if you're on a Windows machine and you try that yourself on Windows 11 or whatever you're on, that is the expected behavior. So I realized when I was implementing this that, if a window isn't active, it doesn't necessarily make sense to minimize it. So instead you want to make it the active window if somebody clicks on it, because they might not know where it is. They might be going, where's the terminal? Oh, there's the terminal. Oh, I'm already typing in the terminal. Now I want to minimize it, and I want to maximize it, and it becomes active again. So little nuances that, like I said, I think people take for granted a lot with operating systems, but once you go to implement it, you go, oh, that's actually interesting. I never really stopped to think. I just kind of assumed that's how it would just work by default. Very cool. Okay, so there's that, and then we go over and we will go over to the next page. I opened up a ton of pop-ups as you saw before. Oh, I minimized the terminal window. And yeah, left and right and left and right. And if we start closing all of our pop-ups, I hope this works. I think I implemented this correctly, but you'll notice after I close this window, we will be down to 6 windows either open or minimized. So it will automatically navigate back and then disable these buttons. Again, one of those things that you don't necessarily consider. I'll show that again. Open up an extra pop-up, go to the right, close not necessarily even the pop-up. I can close the settings window. It's way over on the left. It's on this page here, right there. But then there's only 6 windows, so there would be nothing here on a second page. There is no second page anymore, and it can detect that, and it will move to the left. You can hear in my voice. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I caught it. It would be very annoying otherwise, because you'd be getting lost in here. Okay, cool. There was another thing. I'm just going to go through everything, because nobody can stop me. Next up, if let's see. So I spawn the pop-up again, and let's open up the terminal, and let's go to that second page. And hey, if I minimize the terminal right now, this is another edge case. Where is it going to send the ghost to? Because remember, the ghost is that outline there. If I press minimize, it doesn't have a corresponding button because we're currently on page 2. So if you watch closely, it will actually go to the corresponding page. So if I go to the left here and I click minimize all these pop-ups, one of them is on that second page, and it was that one. So it minimized it over here. Let's show that again. So it goes to that right-hand button. So it will actually check what index it is on in the taskbar, and it will navigate to either the left or right button if it isn't one of the 6 that is currently being displayed. And that way, if you're minimizing a window and you go, oh wait, where did that go? You always know. Very handy. And I think this taskbar is a really good example of what I was talking about in one of my previous videos. I think it was my first or second, where I was saying I really want to balance the clunkiness of Windows 3 and the clunkiness of these old operating systems with modern sensibilities and things that are not frustrating to the user. So this has been a really fun exercise because what I've been doing is backdating the taskbar, kind of. I think that's the right term, because the taskbar, for anybody who's very pedantic, you will know that the Windows taskbar wasn't introduced until Windows 95. So this design is my own, that I'm very proud of, as I've said several times now. But Windows 3 never had a taskbar. So I'm essentially taking the Windows 95 taskbar and kind of trying to retrofit it. That's the word I was looking for. Retrofit it into Windows 3. So very cool, very balanced, a very fun design challenge. And I'm quite happy with how this is working so far. So in addition to that window tearing issue, there is another thing that I would like to fix. I haven't quite nailed down what's going on yet, but if you, and this is always good to practice if you're debugging UI, is spam a button. If you add a new button, whether it's making a HTTP request or just refreshing some state on the page, spam it, see what happens. So if you spam this, I'm pretty sure I can break this. Yeah, you can see it was not doing the right thing a little bit there. Yeah, so currently the window is minimized, but it's also in the scene. And if I click it, it'll open it and then minimize it correctly. So I think what I'm going to have to do is lock this button so it doesn't do anything while that ghost is active, which will be a little bit tricky, but it's completely feasible. So little things, little things. The only other thing I can think to talk about, and I don't think it really warrants its own video, I may talk about it a little bit, is the reader view. Oh, is it open? Oh, I'm double clicking it. That should actually open the minimized window, but it doesn't do that. It will, you'll see here, it will activate it, but that's something that I'm catching live on the air, is double clicking on that does not open a minimized window. That's good to know, making a note of that. It should be fixed by next time. Okay, so tangent aside, here is the reader window. You can scroll with the mouse scroll wheel, as you can see here, and oh my goodness, you can actually use the scroll bar now. Anybody who's watched my previous videos will recall that the scroll bar, for instance, the one in the settings, you cannot click and drag, but you can click on these. So the reader window is not too exciting. You can also just click and drag here. It's not too exciting. It displays text. So if I were to open a text file, well, there we go. There's that bug again. It's not opening the file browser. But if I open the README, there we go. It opens it in the reader. It's the exact same text as the placeholder text. That's what you're seeing there. The scroll bar is a little wonky. I'm trying to fix that. But this scroll bar here is one that I implemented myself. And you'll recall that when I was discussing this select widget, I was complaining about scroll bars, and I went and implemented my own. I don't regret that because I still feel like that is the best solution right here. But for the reader, since this is a more classic scroll, I decided to try and it was very painful. I tried to use Unity's built-in scroll bar, which I've fought with in the past. As you can see, it is still not perfect. I think it's slightly frustrating because it is very difficult to rescale this handle. I keep calling it a tab, but it's a handle. The nice thing is I can click and drag this, unlike my custom one, which implementing that is going to be fairly difficult. Less so because this is actually segmented here, which makes it a bit easier. But it just scales vertically very strange. And this is like hours of work getting it to work. And you can see on the right there, there's like a little shadow that I can't quite get rid of, and I don't know why it's there. And if I click, I've built it in such a way that that is very unsatisfying. So some improvements there, but I'm very happy to at least have a reader window with a scroll bar, even if I will have to go back and fix it up in the future. Also, a quick note, this scroll bar is one of my new widgets, much like the toggles and switches and all that nonsense. So it is a reusable component, so these buttons will be consistent and have consistent behavior across all of the scroll bars in the game once I actually implement them. You will actually see there is one in the file browser window as well, but it doesn't do anything. It's just there to look nice and, I don't know, respond to button inputs. I'm kind of scared to implement that one because, I don't know, it's slightly different between the file browser and the select and the reader. So I'm struggling a little bit with the design of making sure that all of them are consistent. So you can see they're all consistent in design. They've all got this up button, this down button that all work to varying degrees, I suppose. But the actual scroll bars themselves are functioning slightly differently. So this one scales properly, but the handle is always too big because of the way I've set things up. The file browser one looks good, but it hasn't actually been hooked up to the scroll rect here because I kind of want it to snap so that icons are always aligned with the top, and I don't really know how to do that exactly just yet. And then the select one is, I don't know, it kind of works. That's a bug, by the way. You can kind of highlight things off to the right there. Yeah, I guess just to go on a slight tangent, game development is hard. I hope it's fairly obvious from the amount of, rabbit holes that I dive down when I'm talking about this stuff, the amount of tangents I go on, the amount of bugs that I'm finding live while I'm recording this, is building a game, especially one that is just all user interface like this, is very tricky. It's very tricky. And I'm trying to be conscious of getting overwhelmed by things because I think I could really easily get to a point in this development, and I think I did this on my last project too, where I hit a roadblock, like for instance this scroll bar. I spend an afternoon after work, because this is not my full-time job, I spend an afternoon after work trying to fix it, and then I don't get anywhere, and I go, you know what, I'm just going to go build a new feature. And then that feature runs into the same thing where, okay, well, I'm like 80% of the way there, so I'll move on to something else. And then you do that with every single feature in the game, and then you get to the end, and you can very easily get into a situation where every single thing you will have to revisit, remember how you programmed it or implemented it, if you didn't write it down or you don't just have it in your head. And that can be a really slow process. I remember when I was making VSCS-II, I had to go back to all my features and my gross code that I said, I'll fix it later. And then I had to actually pay that technical debt and go and fix things, which was necessary but unfortunate. And I think it's a balancing act because I want to maintain motivation and I would like to keep building new stuff because at the end of the day, this is a hobby. I do this because I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the art. I enjoy the craft. So I don't want to just get stuck on really annoying things. I want to move on. I want to build the next fun thing. But there's a balance there because I'm still trying to make something with a vision. I'm still trying to get all these pieces together. And sometimes that means sitting down and going, okay, I'm going to spend the next week fixing the damn scroll bars, which I think I'm going to have to do. Honestly, scroll bars frustrate me so much that I think I'm going to put this off for now and work on a few other things. The taskbar was one of those things, honestly. I've been working on the taskbar a lot. I really don't want to go back to the scroll bar, but I will have to at some point. So I'm either going to have to document it very well or just suck it up and do it soon. So we'll see how that pans out. It'll probably be a few videos before I bother. Okay. Thank you. I think this was a fairly long one, but I had a lot to talk about. It's been 3 weeks since I last recorded one of these. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay cool, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.